Morning, morning, morning.
Hello, Mad Girl. Were you here early just now?
I was a second bit ago, but my speaker wasn't working, so I had to drop off and go again.
Okay, but even so, you were turning up at sort of 9:25, even before 9:25.
I know. I thought, well, I think she's there because I got a notification.
Well, I was here. I nearly fell off my chair.
And then
I wasn't quite ready. It's like oh, OMG! It's Nicola early. Freak me.
It's all right though. Her speaker didn't work, so she had to log off and restart the old computer. And he does this once a week on a Thursday now.
You're still early though.
Yeah, still early.
Even having been through that, we're still early.
Yes. So let's get cracking, shall we?
Well, just before we do, I think in 165 episodes, that's a first, Nicola. Hurrah! It's worth celebrating. It's a moment.
I am trying to pull my socks up in 2018. Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Look at that. It says on your computer 11:29. It said 11:28 just now. Woo-hoo.
Stop it. Enough already.
Exciting. I love earliness. It's one of my favourite things.
So what's your week been about then?
Oh, I've got rather a lot to tell you in this section, actually. As part of this thing I'm doing with Michael Neill's book called Creating the Impossible, I decided that it's all about writing, being a writer, writing more. And as I say to all of my clients, you know, all you've got to do if you want to call yourself a writer is write every day. So I decided that on top of everything else, I would blog every day, Monday to Saturday mainly, which immediately puts you in the place of having to think up things to write about. But no sooner, it seems, than you commit to that, that I'm finding it already easier. In fact, I've got surplus ideas for this week. But the thing that's making it nicer is that before Christmas, some way before Christmas, maybe 4 to 6 weeks, and I wasn't actually blogging very much, your sister set me up with that thing that Veronica Pullen recommended called Instant Articles, which means that not only do my blog posts display very nicely on people's mobile Facebook feeds and fast, but Instant Articles also pay me for ads displayed therein, about which I'm in two minds, because do you remember we used to think about whether we wanted Google to pay us for AdSense or whether it made our online stuff look a bit low rent. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Anyway, no sooner had I thought to myself, oh, I've got a feeling that Instant Articles will pay me for blogging more, than they sent me a thing advising me that in December, where I blogged the princely number of times 4, I'd earned $1.31. And since I'm blogging 5 times a week in January, and maybe for longer than that, maybe forever, I wonder what that might add up to and whether I'll like it or decide that as a writer the income's welcome and encouraging, or whether it's cheesy and low rent.
Can I give you some feedback as a punter? I just assumed Facebook had put those ads in.
Well, quite. So did I, sort of reading it. But Instant Articles is a sort of... I think I can go on to another level of Instant Articles where they don't pay me to do that, so it would look nicer for the reader.
Sorry. I got completely distracted. Someone's ringing me from England. I've just got to... Nobody ever rings that phone. Sorry, just say that last bit again, Judith.
I think there is a second level or a different level, another level of Instant Articles where they don't pay you and they don't show those adverts.
Okay, well, so you have to, by paying a small monthly fee, you can remove the advert.
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't looked at it, but I've got a vague memory that Sarah told me that, and I could revisit it with her easily. But I'm not going to change anything for a minute, because as a mathematician, if 4 blogs equal $1.31, what will 24 blogs equal? That's what I'm interested to discover, because $24 would be the equivalent of 2 more books sold.
Yeah, and you know what they say, look after the pennies and the pounds.
Well, I know, and it's just fun in a way. But actually, yesterday I wrote about bereavement, and I didn't think 3 cheesy adverts for WP Curve in the middle was the right tone. But you can't turn it on and off You can't turn it on and off, post by post. You're either in or out, I think. Yeah. Anyway, that's my first one. I've got two more like this.
Nice. I've got a thought. Are you interested in my thought?
On the same thing about instant articles?
Yeah, just whether you can block certain URLs perhaps that send through
that
you don't like.
Yes. I think what we're agreeing is that sooner or later, when I can be bothered, I will look into the fine print and see. I'm a bit of a big picture thinker woman myself, not much interested in detail, but I might go and have a snoop around the detail one day, when I've got nothing better to do. But my second of 3 points in this first one is that starting tomorrow, and by the time this goes out, people will already have seen it once, if not twice, VA has created a mobile-friendly version of my newsletter template because the odd person would complain they couldn't read it because it was too small on their phone or their phone wouldn't turn sideways. And the first one goes out tomorrow, fingers crossed, because I've realised, of course, that the combination of people's reading gadget of choice with their browser of choice is, like winning the lottery. And I can never see what they do, and I might not be able to fix what's wrong, but I think I've done everything I can do at my end. So that was quite exciting. It looks rather new and crisp and 2018. And 3 newbies in my diary, 1 last week and 2 this week, one of whom I was given to her as a Christmas present by her other half. I'm a Christmas present, Nicola. Well, isn't that fun? Here's your Christmas present, a consultation with Judith. I think, to be fair, it was agreed in advance. It wasn't like somebody said, what you really need is a consultation with Judith.
Yeah. And I love the thought of being wrapped up all in pink, of course. And then
yes, I'm not altogether sure I was wrapped up, but there we go. Might have been. Who knows?
Very good. I'm very excited by your upbeatness today. That's marvellous.
Yeah, the sunshine here is marvellous. Now, you tell me about your week.
Sunny. Well, it's been raining all week, absolutely downpouring, and sunny and windy today. So that's rather nice. I've finished my Infusionsoft funnel. It is honed to perfection. I'm doing a daily email, which I now have to find the time to put into a daily blog post. So I'm quite interested in your instant articles story, especially if it goes on to so you write it on the blog and it posts to your.
I wrote it on the blog, and Sarah and I decided that it would automatically post to my Facebook page.
Yeah. And does it look like it's posting natively rather than just being shared? I think it must do, mustn't it? Because I read started reading one of yours today, and it looked like a proper, like those things you do for Own It.
Well, was it a note you were reading, or were you reading a blog?
Yeah, it might have been a note.
Yeah, a note's different, obviously. Okay. A blog, I think the thing is that, I tell you what instant articles is all about. They don't have to click on it. So if you were sharing a blog, it would show you the preamble and you have to click and go to my website to read it, and everybody agreed, the world agreed that was too slow and not good for Facebook. Yeah. So along came this thing called instant articles, which means they stay on Facebook, but it populates instantly. So it's fast.
That was the real draw, the fact that people don't have to wait. And,
that's it, yes.
Okay, so the other thing I'm doing is I'm opening my diary as an experiment. You know how people can book in with you?
Yeah.
I haven't really traditionally had that, mainly because the people who booked in with me were not serious players, really. They were people from other countries who didn't have a clue. Yeah. So I think that's to attract, people who are looking for get-rich-quick buttons and things like that. So it hadn't gone very well. But what I'm doing now is I'm putting it in a PS. I've really got my what's it called? I can't remember. My
signature.
Yeah, but I'm honing that and experimenting with what I put in it. So I'm going to put a link to my diary in that. So people, not random people from around the world, just people who've subscribed to my list and get my emails will get that. But I've got something very, very funny to tell you. We had yesterday the ladies from Write Club, who have decided we've got to stop mucking about and start writing more, came to record 5 episodes of the podcast for the next month. And afterwards, we all bundled down to Melissa's. We're actually down to 5 tavernas in the village right now because, anyway, 2 of them are about to shut because they're having extensive plumbing and electricity works done. So we'll be down to 2 or 3 tavernas, but the main one is Melissa's at the moment. So we're all sitting in there and we're telling stories about the Greek language and things we have got wrong. It was absolutely the funniest conversation ever. My contribution was that I barrel up to the meat counter in Katerina's supermarket and very confidently order in a kilo of Stifado para color, and they all fell about at that because Stifado is actually a recipe. It's not a word as such for beef.
Yes.
But anyway, so they said, well, what else do you ask for? I said, oh, yes, I'm very confident with my Ena Kotopolo Filete Paraclaw. And they asked me about that because apparently I thought the word filete meant fillet, because when I pointed to the chicken breasts, the butcher said to me, Ena Filete, which means apparently, would you like? And I've been barreling up to the meat counter ever since, asking them if they want my chicken breasts.
Offering them your chest.
Yes. I'm sorry, I find that hilarious because, I constantly reminded of my driving instructor's words, plenty of confidence but not very competent.
Yeah. And actually, I don't think it matters. I think as long as you make an attempt to be understood in a foreign language, it's generally appreciated.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I don't know why I thought filete was fillet, because it looks like it and sounds like it. Yeah, so that was my week. What's fueled your fire?
3 very nice pieces of feedback about the book. And yesterday I wrote, which mean more to me than the sales, if I'm totally honest. I'm not sure I feel that today, but they're at least as is important in sales. And what's nice is to know that you've made a difference to those people's lives, or at least they're fab, because I can use them in blog articles to sell the book. I can use them in publicity to sell the book. I can blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And I've been sending out autograph copies this week as well, which is quite good fun. My friend Leslie last Friday asked if she could have one. Eric, the computer man, wanted one. John, he wanted one for the foreword. And Margie, the beautician who did the beauty for the photo shoot, she wanted one. So I've been to the post office. That's fun. But the things that they liked, there was a really good woman that wrote in and said, I've just read the thing about nice girl hand wringing. I had to stop, put the book down and lie back. Truly, I flipped out the footrest on the sofa and I put my head back and I just sat and contemplated what I'd read. It was such a surprise to realise how my life is and has been controlled by being a nice girl. And I'm now 60. My mother's voice has been constantly in my head telling me what I should do. She passed away 2 years ago and I'm still doing those nice girl things she ingrained in me. I didn't even realise this was an issue for me. I shall endeavour to stop it immediately. And it's so nice, isn't it, that you can change the life of a 60-year-old woman because of a piece of writing you did last August about a topic that you thought everybody understood, but actually she didn't understand it, and she's really bright. It's really cool, actually. And a couple...
Yeah. I love the way she used one of your expressions to tell you what she was going to do.
Yeah, well, I told you she's bright, you see. And other people that similar things, horrid feelings of overwhelm, ennui and powerlessness. I felt so lost. I realised I haven't been asking myself the right questions. And somebody who said, I'm going to stop not charging properly for myself. So the fact that they feel motivated by reading a book to make changes that are important in their lives, I think it's fueled my fire. That's what it's done.
Yeah, it would do, wouldn't it? I mean, the amount of changes I've made in my life through reading books. And the other thing that's really helped me is listening, well, journaling obviously, but listening to Q&A sessions where other people are getting coached. So people really don't value those. I have a call in, and I'm sure you do, and I'm sure you record them, and I'm sure you make them available to everyone. And I'm not sure that anyone actually listens to them. With the view that it's valuable listening to other people being coached, because you never know when someone's going to ask something that strikes home for you as well. It's happened on many occasions that I've been listening to someone else being coached and thought, Jesus, that's me.
Well, some of my very diligent clients in Small Business Big Magic listen to all of them. And the big surprise of that group for me was precisely that, how much they got out of listening to me coach other people, even if the businesses were so different. Amazing extra added value. Now, but I also go into the Facebook group and say, my callers today were Mary and John, and we talked about this and that, so they can decide whether or not listening to the audio is something for them, for the people who aren't typically, who don't feel the need to be all over everything and haven't got the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I used to listen to up to 4 hours of Rich Sheffrin's call-ins, because he had, hundreds of people would call in, and most of them, he used to say, most of you are not asking anything, you're just listening.
Yes.
He said, you don't have to do that, you can listen to them.
Well, and also, we've worked out, haven't we, and I say this to clients often, don't overlook the silent lurker.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget about them, yeah.
No.
So what fueled my fire this week is exactly the same thing, a wonderful bit of feedback. One of the people who came to the workshop at Gatwick is now in Clicks and Leads Academy for 3 months or 12 months. And he said, wow, Nicola, I'm not used to so much support and so prompt as well. It actually makes me feel quite emotional. Thank you so much.
Wow.
That's a man too. So rather nice.
Oh, I like an emotional man.
We do, one in touch with his feelings.
Yes.
So the other thing that fueled my fire is I've created a new sales video, something I've been meaning to do for ages, because I've got a sales page for Clicks and Leads Academy, and it converts at about 3%, which is not bad. 1 to 3% is to a warm market, which it is, because only the people who've been on my mailing list can see that. And it does all right, but I thought, I wonder if it would do better if it was a video. So I created a video. Before that, I'd created a video just reading out what was on the sales page, but this time I came at it differently, and I created a video based on Taki Moore's webinars that sell guidelines, so I thought, well, if he's a $1 million coach, if anything's going to convert to a coaching program, it's going to be that. So I did that, and it's just gone up, and I'm waiting to see what happens, and I'm split testing it between the original sales page and the video sales page. And the other thing I want to try is writing a long form sales letter, but I'm really not convinced anyone reads those anymore. But some people I know, like Neil Asher, only have a long form sales page to sell into his Aussie entrepreneurs. So I thought it's definitely worth split testing that as well. So split testing is fueled by fire this week.
And was the sales video for the Academy?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I just didn't want to mislead people in the notes here.
No, God forbid we should mislead people.
No.
Here at Own It, we personally believe that leaders are readers. But sometimes it's just not convenient to read and you'd rather listen instead. For listeners of Own It the podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. A couple of titles we've picked out for you particularly are Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg or Crush It, Why Now is the Time to Cash In on Your Passion by Gary Vaynerchuk. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/ownit. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ownit for your free audiobook. You can pick one of the ones I've chosen for you, or you can choose something else. Enjoy your listen. Okay, so our focus this week is something that's...
Before we go there, can we go back to the screen with the timing on so I can manage?
Sure, sorry. Yes.
That's all right.
Okay, so this is something that's been on my mind on and off all week. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it, and then you can chip in. And we talked about it before, but I'm interested to hear because my views have changed a little bit about it.
Okay.
So when you know what you want in life, and then you know what you need to do to get it, one of the things that people find really difficult is to keep themselves accountable. And it's something people seek from a coach, and I've never offered it before because I believe that it's no good making someone else accountable for you doing the things you know you need to do, because then when that person isn't around anymore, it's the old teach them to fish rather than give them a fish thing. So I've always felt it'd be much more helpful to encourage people to be accountable to themselves and to give them the tools and any techniques and tips I know to do that. And the other thing I do to help myself, because neither of us have an issue with this, do we? We get up in the morning, we think, what do I need to do to bring myself closer to my goals? And we do it, mostly.
Yes, but I've got some thoughts on that, which I'll tell you when I get to my bit.
Okay, all right. So what I do is I create supportive environments. So I was thinking about this in terms of, I went to a book club this week, which is where you go and you get told to read a book, and then you get back together the next month and you discuss the book. And I thought to myself, why am I doing this? I could just read books. Apart from the social aspect of it, I thought I am much more likely to read a book if I've committed to other people to reading it, and I don't want to look like a fool, so I will read it. And they're likely to be books I wouldn't have read, and I know that I want to write books and read more books. So what I'm doing with Book Club and Write Club is I'm setting myself up in this supportive environment, which is fun, to do the things I say I want to do, having found that I wasn't doing them if I didn't. And the other thing was I came across a fantastic quote around this, which was, when you're berating yourself for not having done the things on your to-do list, because of course a to-do list is a a tool that you can use to keep yourself accountable, because you can't forget it if it's on a to-do list. And if you haven't done the most important thing on the to-do list, at the end of the day, you should say, I haven't done because I chose not to prioritize it. So it cuts through the crap of all the reasons you give yourself for why you haven't done that. For example, my VZ recording. A supportive environment for me is that I'm in a team, that my team don't earn any money if I don't do the recording, because they can't then take it and edit it and then spread it all over the internet. So I make myself accountable by having a team. And if I don't do it at the end of the day, because actually it's surprisingly hard to make myself do it on the day that I'm supposed to do it, but I'm going to keep this in my diary and my to-do list, and I'm going to move it forward. And every time I don't do my VZ when I'm supposed to, I'm going to say to myself, I haven't done my VZ today because I chose not to prioritize it. And that means, in a way, that I choose to let other people down. And that's not a thing I want to do. So that's another tool I'm going to use. And then the final thing, of course, is having an accountability buddy, even if you're not in the same business. You can find someone who is trying to achieve the same goals that you're trying to achieve, i.e. build a successful business, and you can get together once a week. And we all know how hard those meetings are to keep up as well. I mean, I know you probably don't, Judith, because you're a really organised person, but it only takes one person 1 week to say, I don't feel like it this week, or I'm not feeling very well, or whatever, and one starts to slide in the commitment. So I just wondered really what you thought about all of that, and how you help people keep accountable in your groups. And are there people who don't like to be, are there people who want you to do it, or?
Yes, well, typically I've got loads to say now. Having said to you earlier in the week, I don't think I was anything to contribute on this topic at all. First of all, going back to that thing you just said about the accountability buddy, my friend and client Margaret, who lives in Evergreen, Colorado, recommended to us all last week something called FocusMate. FocusMate.com, which I think is free. It's called Stop Procrastinating, Boost Productivity, and Get Focused on Work. You just go on there whenever you like and get a buddy who wants a buddy today, and the two of you work through something respectively together for an hour or whatever you decide.
Oh, I don't know if I want to talk to a complete stranger.
Well, you're not talking to the stranger. They're just your accountability buddy. So Margaret's accountability buddy was working on something to do with photos, and Margaret was working on Margaret's project, and they just nudged each other along. Yeah. So, that I think that works rather well. FocusMate.com. And I don't need it, as you rightly said. Now, it's not that I don't need supportive environments. I think I set them up for myself. And I do think I set up accountability for myself as well. I think what this hinges on is whether or not one is self-directed,
internal,
whether or not a deadline would help, whether or not you've spent a career working in an environment where you were accountable to a boss. So, I've been self-employed for 40 years, but if I'd been employed for, say, 30 of them and then started being self-employed, my old habit is to be accountable to a boss and my colleagues, isn't it? So that might be quite deeply ingrained. And to set up a new way is where people, I think, could get into difficulties, and where perhaps a coach or a group might help. But I can't make them want it, Nicola. I can't. If they keep turning up and they haven't done it, it's because they don't want it enough, the thing that they're working on, and they still feel either that they must, or that they should, or it seems the most sensible, or something like that. Anybody who's on fire with their thing doesn't struggle to get going with it.
No.
And anybody who's self-directed doesn't either. But in both of my groups, I do offer accountability, and some people need it, and some people enjoy it, and I'm absolutely happy to provide it, or the group is. And actually, if they out themselves, they don't often need somebody breathing down their neck. Like your book club, it gives you a deadline, doesn't it? I agree with you. A book club's a double-edged sword. You think, oh God, why am I wasting my time reading these books of other people's choice? But the fact is, you read different books and difficult books and other books than you would have chosen, and you read it to a deadline, so it gets done. So I'm in two minds about book clubs, but it does achieve the thing. So there's lots of ways of achieving the thing, and I think my ways are, I can't turn up to my work without results. I can't turn up here every week and say, no, I've done nothing. That's it. done nothing. So, the podcast is one of my supportive environments. It's and my newsletter is, and my email is. I've got to have something to tell my clients. And when I'm coaching them, I've got to have something where I've done that, I've tried it, I liked it, it didn't work, or whatever. So my supportive environment really is public accountability, because I'm telling my story out loud as I go along. Don't tell them anything out loud I don't want them to know, like had a go at that, didn't like it, failed miserably. I just tell them the things I've liked and I've enjoyed and that worked. So I do use my clients and the public and this for accountability, I realised. And then I noticed that in the word accountability was the word account, which of course I would like because that's me. And I use counting as a way. So book sales numbers, review numbers, client numbers, your spreadsheets. I use counting as a way. And one of my favourite expressions is, what you measure increases. And so people can get accountability by a very small measurable, like how many people visited my website this month. That could be your accountability thing, isn't it? Yeah. And the other thing I realised was when I signed up for Michael Neill's Creating the Impossible in 90 Days thing, I thought, oh, it sounds really hard and it sounds like 90 days. But actually, his is the softest, most gentle, most forgiving, most easiest accountability I've ever done. All we do is we show up today and there's a small amount of inspiration and we trust it's going to work. So it doesn't need to, I've realized from that accountability doesn't need to be somebody with a bullwhip.
No, it's interesting what you say about newsletters, because I started one back in 1998 or wherever it was, particularly as a way of keeping myself accountable for learning something new every week.
Yeah.
I remember that. And that just grew and grew. And then by archiving it was full of keywords. So it went onto the website and got me traffic as well. Yeah, you're right. So yes, public accountability. I'm not very good on challenges. I'm not very consistent. Consistency is one of my issues. So I'm working very hard to keep, not make big announcements, but just to do things and then just quietly become more consistent with the things I promised myself I'm going to do. Yeah, you're right. It's internal versus external driven, isn't it?
Yeah, self-directed, or you need somebody standing over you. You won't go to I think the horrible jobs we won't do unless we've promised ourselves or somebody, some mechanism that will. So for instance, many people go to an exercise class or the gym with somebody else or with a personal trainer, because by yourself you wouldn't go because it's too horrid. Unless you joined into something that's fun, like dancing, and you can't wait to get there because you love it. So I always say to my clients, don't pick something you're not going to do, pick, because there's always a way, even in the vast topic of marketing, there's always something they're going to love and can't wait to do. Well, let's just do that. They work well.
Yeah, I had a dream last night. I dreamt about that Steve had been going to a personal trainer and he was really ripped.
Oh, bless. I've been thinking about him this week. Anyway, and last night somebody said the lady for whom I was the Christmas present, was it that lady? Yeah. No, it wasn't that lady. It was yesterday's newbie. And she said, I really know I should be blogging. I went, oh, don't do blogging if it's something you should. What's your thing? How do you like to consume the content? And X, Y, and Z. Oh, I'll do that then.
Yeah, I encourage my people, if they possibly can, to make videos because it's the most efficient way to do it. But if they can't do it, if they can't talk to camera, like I talked to one potential client this week, and he said, I need to be anonymous because I've got quite a high profile day job. I said, yes, but you can make videos that don't involve you talking to camera, and it's still the most effective way to do it. So, yeah, okay.
I think there's an interesting choice that anybody listening has got, which is, do I have a supportive environment to get something I want to get done? Yeah. If it's still impossible, should it be on my list at all? Or can I either outsource it, or is there another way to do it that I would love? I think the supportive environment thing is a very nice idea, something that just sort of tips you into getting it done. And that's what surprised me about Creating the Impossible. It's like, oh, it's just another day, just another day. You said that. You said it with the man that talked about donuts. If you don't eat a donut for a year, it's just one donut a day.
Yeah.
You see, so actually you can, it is just do one little thing or don't do one little thing every day, and differences occur.
Yeah, it mounts up. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was a Thomas Leonard thing, wasn't it, from the supportive environments?
It could be, yes.
It was definitely. And I just think what incredible impact that man had on my life. It's so sad he's not around anymore, but...
There are people, particularly in my Club 100, who send in their check-in report every Monday and they wouldn't miss it. And they get more done when they do it, and it makes them feel good about themselves. They feel crisp and efficient. It's a great way to start a Monday morning. Usually problems solve themselves within 24 hours of their confessing it, like miracles. Other people can see their progress and be inspired by them, and therefore they understand when the community then understands when you've got a win, that they're excited because they've been involved in the journey. But it's not for everyone. That's the thing. You've got to work out your own style, I think.
Yeah, I hadn't mentioned those, and that is I love when I see those, and I love it as a coach as well, because I can see where their thinking's going wrong.
Oh, quite. I like their emotion. I like to know I like to be able to take their emotional temperature every Monday morning in between our monthly calls.
Yeah, so it gives you an insight into how they're feeling, and from if they're going down a wrong path technologically speaking, I'd rather catch them, rather see it every week. But none of my people do weekly accountability reports.
Well, in my group, I would say 25% do, another 25% do it when they feel like it. Some of them send them to me privately on an ad hoc basis, and some of them it isn't even appropriate for the nature of the work they're doing. If you're doing something big that doesn't have incremental steps, there's nothing you can send in. If you're writing a novel over a period of 3 years, you can't send in something on a Monday morning for 150 weeks that's stepping towards that. Basically, she's only got one thing to do, which is to keep on writing.
Yeah, on that topic, I'd just like to say there is a flash fiction writing competition going on in Write Club the podcast, and it's not too late to get your 500 words in. And just wanted to mention that because we're looking for new entries. Just come to writeclubthepodcast.com and on Facebook, and you'll find the details. So, fancy writing 500 words, Judith? You might know.
No, I'm not interested in fiction. Thank you so much.
All right, okay. Right, so we come up with lots of tools and things to help, but we think...
Yes, and I think we don't want them all to adopt all of them. We just want them to adopt something that works for them. And if you haven't found something that works for you yet, there's something in here because it's no more complicated than this, I think.
Yeah. I just want to come back to what you said earlier about, when people say what they want and then they don't do it. So say a bit more about that.
I could look at my client base and see that a goodly percentage of them make progress all the time. And one client that comes to mind I've been working with for 4 years, she just puts her head down and gets on with it. And over 4 years, when you measure progress, it's quite considerable. And sometimes in a week or a month in those 4 years, it isn't, because it's half term or the school holidays or something. And there's a small spiral of disappointment or despair. And I perk them up and say, it's a long game. Over 4 years, it's spectacular. I've forgotten what the question was because that's preamble.
You about whether people really want things.
Yes. Yeah, but I'm not bullying her to be successful at her thing. She wants to be successful at her thing. The other type of person is somebody who 2 or 3 years in will still be paying lip service to it, but have made no significant progress at all because they're struggling with something that they think they should, something that seems to make, but they can't actually ever bring themselves to do it, and they can't really understand why. It's just wrong. Just switch it to something that you're either on fire with or would make your heart glad, or is actually an illogical way to achieve something, because your logical way is not working.
Yeah. And even if you end up taking a series of illogical steps and they seem completely unconnected and random, as Steve Jobs said, you can only connect the dots when you look back, can't you? So if if you hadn't taken those seemingly illogical steps, you wouldn't be in the place where you are now, and you might not have got to the place where you wanted to be through another means, as it were.
It's funny, yesterday I was saying in the group, I was telling a story about a chap that I coached and how we had a big argument over what he was going to call his first book. And they said, who won? And I said, the client always wins. Because, and as it happens, he was right and I was wrong. But you've got to let them experiment, and I don't bully them or anything, but there are sometimes clients I'm talking to where in my body what they're espousing feels wrong. Yeah. And I really want to say, and sometimes I do, I either explode and say, I thought you said you wanted this, or my more gentle one is, I've got to tell you what's in my body. It just feels that we're struggling on so terribly here. Is there, why don't you abandon this thing? Or is there an opportunity to abandon this thing that seems to make sense to you, but on which no progress is being made over a number of years?
Yeah. It does come down to what you want, doesn't it? Because if you want something bad enough, you're going work out what it's going to take to get you there. And then you're going to take those steps, and perhaps you need support along the way for various reasons, technological, emotional, whatever. But it's got to come from that wanting. And people say that your why's got to be big enough. When you say you want something, why do you want it? Is that why big enough? And
it's an interesting thought, and they're all. Hang on a minute, I always get the sides of the brains wrong. They're both left-brained thoughts. They're logical thoughts. And actually, for a very logical person myself, I don't think it's about your why being big enough or whatever it is. I think quite a lot of people think, X would make a sensible business. And the results come more easily and more wonderfully and better from me saying, for instance, I'm just going to be a writer. Not, I'm going to make a business around selling loads of books. It's more falling in love with the thing and doing the thing and not really caring about what happens, because we know if you show up every day and write, something will happen, being open to the possibility. But when you hold it very grippy tight and you've got to have your success manifest in a particular way, I feel it badly in my body when they're describing it to me. And it exactly mirrors that they're not really making much progress because they're trying to force themselves to do something.
Yeah. And have you seen the quote at the bottom of my Momentum screen? It says, "A year from now, you will wish you had started today."
Yes, and I see those. That's true. It's almost like a year from today, something I had started on today, I'll be able to see the results of, but something I just paid lip service to, I won't, isn't it? So if I keep eating the donuts, nothing's going to change. If I give them up, everything changes. And it's as simple as that. You could just say, I don't know what will come of this, but I'm going to give up my donut a day. That's my point. You see, it's a more emotional, easy thing. If you're going to go, I'm going to lose 6 stone, and one of the ways I'm going to do it, I'm going to give up my donut a day. You're too wedded to the outcome. But if you're an accountability type and a left brain type and a results oriented type and a goal type, so you want to lose 6 stone, go for it. That never worked for me. You've got to know your own success systems, I think.
Yeah, it's all about self-awareness, isn't it?
Yes, which is quite hard, Nicola. I mean, you're pegging up there towards your late 50s, and I'm in my early 60s. We're learning. It's taken us that long to learn how we operate best, and we're still learning.
Yes, it's just taken a dispiritingly long time.
Well, they do say it, don't they? That that's life, isn't it? We're just here trying to work out how it all works.
And then just as we get some glimmer of insights, we pop our clogs. That's a cheery thing.
I do think the expression of supportive environment might help people, actually. So accountability, if you're that kind of, yes, let's crack on numbers type. A supportive environment, creating the impossible is a supportive environment. Anything that just gently nudges you into doing something that you think you want to do more of or less of. So, Marion's Slimming World is a supportive environment because you go every week and you get weighed and you discuss what you can eat and blah, blah, blah. There are many of those in the world, supportive environments that you can join up to.
Yeah, even as little as carving out a desk in a room, in the corner of a room somewhere can be a supportive environment, can't it? And it can be practical, it can be emotional, it can be psychological.
Yes. One of as I said to you once before, the people I know who write professionally have 2 computers and one of them isn't connected to the internet. That's a supportive environment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I need, I think. Okay, word of the week then.
Worry. And it says here in brackets, don't about anything ever.
So you have to train yourself though, don't you?
Well, quite a lot of people have come to me this week and said, I've worried about this, I'm worried about that. Oh, don't do it. Don't do that. Don't worry. Don't. What's the point? It doesn't help, does it? It doesn't. Stop worrying. Just let's find out what it is. Is it bad really? And is there anything we can do about it?
Yeah. I often catch myself starting to worry and think, am I okay right now? That's a good question for me. And if I'm okay now, I can stop. Catch myself. It's catching yourself, isn't it? It's in the same way when I, feel a bit down, I catch myself and I turn it into a grateful thought. Gratitude. You can't feel down when you're feeling grateful. Yeah. Good stuff.
No, that's true.
My word is catch up. with a hyphen, because using this time after Christmas to catch up, I was behind with my V-zines, and we've caught up with those. I was behind with some jobs, like making the sales video, and I've caught up with that. And now I've got to just catch up with my Xero accounts, which is something I'm actually looking forward to, because I'm a little bit behind with those. Are you there?
I am here, yes. We've developed a slight delay, but as long as we're not as fast as we both normally are, it works fine, I think.
Yeah, okay. So, project updates then.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah. Well, I had a look at our V-zine, I had a look at our podcast numbers, and after our, couple of spikes after Christmas, we are steadily holding steady, so I'm fine with that. And then on my book project, I've written another scene, and I read that out on loud. I wrote it because I had to read out work in progress on the podcast, so there's a supportive environment and a deadline for you. And the ladies loved it, so I'm edging forward. It's a slow business, this novel writing, I tell you. But I will keep going. So all my projects are on course, as it were.
Marvellous. Well, my book sales are up to 68, my reviews up to 17. I'm headed for 100 of both. And you were so right last week about the potential of newbies in my diary taking their first step with me by buying a book. So it's great that I can recommend that on our first call where appropriate, and sometimes in an email follow-up if I forget. And what I've realised is, that thing we used to do, actually I don't think I did, but you did and Sue O'Kell did, that thing we used to do with a report for under a tenner, where if clients bought it, they were self-selecting as a paying customer as opposed to a tire-kicking freebie seeker. Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
We used to call white papers or something. It was basically to divide your list into somebody who's bought anything, even if it's under a tenner and is likely to spend more later, versus those who just stay in there forever and never and buy anything. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it's called a tripwire product.
Yes, I don't like that expression, but the principle is okay. But it begins the relationship, that's the point. It begins the commercial relationship. We're off, and it's great for me to have that. I'm chuffed to bits about it.
Yeah, absolutely, because if someone won't buy a book, then...
You said that last week. Yes, it's not that they won't buy a book. A book might not be right for them, but it is a gentle way to ease them into beginning a commercial relationship.
Yeah, I think it'll be even better once you've got your audio done as well. Did I see somewhere that you're moving towards that?
I've recorded question number 1 on Audio Boom. I'm going to record questions. Part of my creating the impossible, apart from deciding on book 2, is I'm going to create 52 out of the questions: audios, videos, blog posts, and notes. Wow. So that there's a quantity of stuff in 90 days. I've recorded question number 1 so far. I'm going to do them week by week. We're only in week 3. So like you, I've got to catch up with question 2 and 3, and I'm going to do that on Saturday.
And then you'll be able to compile them into the audiobook.
Well, I don't know whether I will be able to do that. I think I've got to talk to Tom Evans about audiobooks, because he told me, and that's why I PM'd you about our podcast, he told me that his audiobooks outsell all his other types of books. But I think that's because his client base self-selected as people who liked audio, because he also makes meditation-type audios.
Yes. Yeah. We were talking about this the other day. Apparently Audible are offering authors who haven't got audio deals 6-figure deals now.
Oh.
And now publishers are wising up, and they're starting to try and insist that people sign over their audio rights as well as their TV and film rights when they sign for a paltry little advance. So
you can stick that where the sun don't shine.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because...
handing over your rights for nothing, you can stick where the sun don't shine.
But the publishers, if someone is deeply wedded to the idea of being a published author at a traditional publishing house, they probably would sign it all over. But people like us who know that you can, publish on Amazon and Kindle yourself and then go on.
Well, I think you just need to be savvy. You would say, I'm not including it in the initial deal, but I will be open to negotiating with you separately. It's an options opportunity, that actually, which is, and if you don't come to me with an audio deal within 12 months of publication of the first, I'm free to take it elsewhere.
Yes, we're definitely much more commercially aware than the average author, that's for sure. So, interesting. So, where were we? That's your project updates. Who or what's impressed?
Have you got some?
I have. I've got three actually. First of all, I'm impressed with myself because no sooner did I get back to England than my keyboard started playing up. I already had a missing key, which I've lost. I don't know where that is, so I've got to order a replacement. And have you ever taken a key off your keyboard?
I have, to clean underneath, and I could never get it back on. I had to get a new keyboard.
Oh, right, okay. Well, I've managed to not only get some keys off and work out, that little thing, the little 2 bits.
Yes, I followed a video on YouTube. I couldn't do it. I couldn't see well enough. It was too fiddly.
Well, that was one of my challenges. I had to get out Heather's old lady glasses she'd lent me.
Yeah.
So I got the contact lenses on, the old lady glasses on, a very bright light, a very shaky hand, and a very small set of tweezers. I did manage to get them back on, and I stopped it doing the whole semicolon repetitive thing that it was doing because I gave it a good clean underneath. And then as soon as I'd fixed that, the on-off switch stuck in on the right-hand side. So I then had to watch another YouTube video about how to dismantle that bit. So I'm very impressed with myself that I managed to do this, but it was born of desperation.
Following YouTube videos on how to fix things is very satisfying, isn't it?
It is lovely. And the other thing I've been impressed with this week is, do you know the Penn Cage novels? He's a detective come mayor.
No, I'm not sure I do.
Well, I've read 2 of them now, and I absolutely love them. It's by an author called Greg Illes, I-L-E-S. They're set in Natchez, which is a town in the deep south in Mississippi. And he was born and brought up in Natchez, and then he went away to become a lawyer, then a prosecutor. Then he became a best-selling novelist, and then he came back to live in Natchez for reasons that I will let you discover yourself in book 1, and ends up staying there with his daughter, and he becomes a very good investigator. So it's like a detective come crime. Oh, it's just brilliant. And it's
that'll do it for me. I'm excited already. Surely the author's name is Iles, I-L-E-S.
Well, nobody knows how to pronounce it, but I think you'll love it, Judith. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
The descriptive it's dense description, but really easy to read, atmospheric, and the plots are such rattling good plots that I got halfway through one and my heart was pounding. I thought it must be near the end of the book, surely, because I was reading it on Kindle, and no, it was only the sort of second. It was only the sort of halfway bit. I was so excited that I had another half a book to go. Really good. I loved it.
I shall add them to my list of 52 books for 2018.
Absolutely. So what about you then?
I've got 2 here, one of which I've already told you quite a lot about, Michael's book, Creating the Impossible, but it sounds challenging, but it's not a bit of it. It's very gentle and is allowing the impossible to unfold, which I really love. But my best thing this week was I saw the film called The Post with Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks, which is a true story of a lady called Catherine Graham, who was the CEO of the Washington Post, and she was there because the business was owned by her family, and her father in the early 70s passed the business to her husband. Because that's what men did in those days. Instead of to his daughter, passed it to the daughter's husband, and the husband committed suicide. So she ended up in charge of this business anyway, at a crucial time for the business where they were, going to the stock exchange to raise money. And when they go to the stock exchange, there were lots of sort of terms in the deal, which is that the people could ask for their money back if anything ghastly happened to the world that would affect the deal within 7 days. Well, something ghastly did happen to the world in those 7 days, and the Washington Post had to report it and had to go to the Supreme Court. And it was about, they discovered when Richard Nixon was the president of the United States that the successive governments had lied to the American people about the Vietnam War. And somebody photocopied and smuggled out all the papers proving it. And the New York newspaper published it and were injuncted to stop doing that. And so all the content was smuggled to the Washington Post instead. And every single person around her on the board of directors, on the finance team, in the print room, in the editorial board, they were all men. And she had to take this really hard decision by herself as a mother and grandmother about, will we imperil the business by printing this stuff, and it leads to a court case, and it goes to the Supreme Court. It is all a matter of record. I'm not going to spoil the end because I was young and you were younger still, but it's edge of the seat stuff towards the end, even though, we know the end, but I'd forgotten because I was only a teenager and not a very politically aware one. But it's not the story of a woman in charge of a newspaper. It's the story of, Vietnam and Watergate. But it just so happens that the woman at the centre of it, the person at the centre of it, is a woman surrounded by men. And it wasn't normal in those days for a woman to be in charge of a business like this. And nobody around her believed she had what it took. And she clearly did, actually. And even she, I don't think, believed it because, she'd been bypassed by her own father. Fascinating. Really good.
No, it sounds good. I'm going to watch that this weekend. Is it on Netflix?
No, but you can find a link if you want to watch it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Our sex pats say what we like.
Yes.
We'll watch British television regardless. Oh God, nothing stands between me and my casualty, that's for sure. Right.
Can I tell you something very proudly? I've never watched a single episode of Casualty ever.
Well, can I tell you something very proudly? I've watched every single episode.
I know you have. And that, listeners, explains the difference between yin and yang, Nicola and me.
It does. Thank you very much. It's been a marvellous episode. Your energy was infectious.
See you next week, Dom.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.